It's episode 96 of the Improv London podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Moses, and this week's guests are Alex Keane and Bobby Anderson. Hello. Hello. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm Alex, and
I'm Bobby.
So that you can tell those very distinctive voices apart.
I'm the one with the lisp that just comes and goes randomly.
I'm the one who's slowly losing his voice. Yeah, we're here at the Bristol Improv Project weekend retreat.
British Improv Project.
Yeah.
I think we're all tired.
Tired, a little bit hungover. I've been to a lot of places beginning with B recently.
So the Bristol, how I'm doing it. I look out the window.
It's because I listened to your podcast with Kate where you mistakenly say that you're in Bristol when visiting Birmingham.
Bristol is very much calling to me. I must go to the Improv Theatre there, but I must stop mistaking other places such as Birmingham or indeed Britain for Bristol, which is a marvellous place and I'm very fond of it. But anyway, we're at the British Improv Project. Tell me about your relationship with the British Improv Project.
Ooh, we'll have to start with you because you came to the first one, didn't you, Alex?
Yeah, we were kind of, this back when I was in the University of Sheffield's Improv Society, the Shrimps, as social media manager or some similar committee role. We got a message from Jeff Monk, who runs these things, saying, I'm setting up an improv retreat weekend and it's going to be really close to you guys. We're going to do it in Edale, in the Peak District. It's a non-profit event. We all of the teachers are kind of on a minimal pay and all the money goes to, we're renting out a bit of a youth hostel for a weekend. Does anyone fancy coming along? And 4 or 5 of us went, yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. Hopped on a train and then spent this kind of magical weekend it was just like little scout huts and things in a youth hostel. And doing this kind of bizarre range of workshops. There was one that was called Words and Silence, which was it was one of those things where we had just a weekend of torrential rain, and then we were sat in this scout hut doing completely silent scenes, just listening to water dripping around us, and it was a very ethereal feeling. And so since then, I've been coming along to everyone, and that was about 3 or 4 years ago. And Bobby started joining me, and then we started teaching workshops at them, and now this is the 7th or 8th, right. I think. Yeah. It's just gone from strength to strength and grown and grown.
Cool.
Yeah, I got dragged along, was offered the opportunity to teach, which has been great fun, and also just learning from everyone. And I think always coming away with that feeling of, oh, it's not just us. Because it can feel so lonely when you're in the city, just going, please, someone, just do improv, love it as much as I do, please.
So this time you were teaching montages?
Yes, I got to do the Friday afternoon level 4 workshop, which I hope you enjoyed.
I enjoyed it very much.
We just got to so I've done lots of different levels of workshops before and always try and plan them out meticulously. Good. I think the joy of doing a level 4 one is you just get to go, I'm just going to have them do different types of montage and different openings and different transitions, and they all know what they're doing. There'll occasionally be some coaching notes, but that's it. And gosh, it was fun. Yeah. I think everyone has learnt that they quite dislike Del Close's invocation.
I don't think it suits a British improv spirit.
I thought it'd be really interesting. So that, I guess for any listeners that don't know it, that's the one that is I won't explain it in detail, but just to jog any memories, it is you are, thou art, I am. And you get something from it and go through this big invocation. And apparently there's an amazing YouTube video of Del Close doing it himself.
Right.
And it's very theatrical and a borderline mystical experience, kind of.
It's very Del Close. I thought it was a lot of fun.
It was fantastic. It was fantastic to give it a try because I'd had it explained to me, and so I knew the principle of how it worked, but I'd never actually found anyone that was prepared or willing to try it. So it was great fun giving it a try. So thank you very much for that.
No problem.
I can't say I'm necessarily going to incorporate it into anything I do. But
most people reacted to that. I'm going to say something that will annoy a lot of your listeners. I think they reacted to that the same way I reacted to the Harold, which is, well, I've done it once, not again.
I'm not pro Harold.
It's so nice to meet people like that.
I mean, fair enough. If you love Harolds, do Harolds. But my heart usually sinks when an act comes on and says, "Hello, we're whatever, and we're going to perform a Harold," and I'm like, oh, okay.
My thing with it is just always, is it worth the extra effort compared to that group one before you who did a slacker? And that required no strict structure, and it was really good.
Could you explain briefly what the slacker is?
So a slacker is, well, someone debated this with me at a point, but I am fairly certain that a slacker is you do a sort of round robin, so A and B, B and C, C and D, but it's not a consistent location. Because my understanding is a La Ronde would be a consistent location with a round robin, like all the kids at their lockers in a high school. And it might come up later why that one's in my head. Whereas a slacker is sort of, you'd have a person speaking to someone at a checkout, and then someone would tag in and you'd see the person who was buying their weird groceries, why they were doing that, because they've been tagged to their home. And then maybe their partner mentions something that they've had a bad day at work, and then the guy who's buying groceries gets tagged out, and it becomes why they're having a bad day at work. I always find it interesting how easily you can build narrative in that sort of round robin style, without when you only ever speak to two other improvisers, but huge, rich worlds and narratives can form just in that.
It's inspired by the film Slackers, so just go on Wikipedia and look the plot of that up if you're struggling with the structure.
Right. Oh wow, I didn't realise that.
So I must be right because if it's inspired by that scene, that film.
Cool. That's new information. Thank you. And you've both taught in previous years. You did one on spontaneity.
Yes, Sunday morning hungover spontaneity.
Yes, So we've taught a couple of different things. I ran one on. We ran one on guessing games that was a lot of fun.
Guessing games.
Look, it's one of those things that it's never. It doesn't come up very often here. So normally, because you have all levels come here, and guessing games are like quite a core part of short form improv. We just said, hey, look, we'll do everyone an introduction to guessing games. We'll get them to love booing,
because it's such a different skill set. It's in a sense, it's sort of the opposite of short form, because you're continuously being denied. You don't really know what's happening. You have to constantly go back on things that you've said and change your mind and prevaricate and justify things. And you get an audience, the way you work out what's going on is the audience booing at you. Yeah. For a lot of people, that's really disconcerting. And, we wanted to just be able to go, firstly, there's a bit of a formula of how you narrow things down. It's like playing 20 questions. Yes. You start big, get more specific. That's something you can practice. But also, let's learn to love being booed by the audience and getting that feedback and going like, that's great. Because improv's all about, you do something wrong, you fail, and then you get back up again, and that's the only way that you're going to learn.
So are we talking games like Party Quirks and that sort of thing?
Yeah, Party Quirks. One of my favourites is Late Again. So someone's late for work, they're talking to their boss, a ridiculous reason why they're late and a ridiculous method of transport, and they're guessing by two people behind the boss miming out.
Trying to help their colleague out.
Yeah.
And Chain Murder.
Chain Murder. Oh, incredible game.
Oh, I've just had bad experiences with Chain Murder.
How?
It went on for ages.
See, we start by doing it. So the first person who comes in, they've got to guess the room in the house, the occupation of the murderer and the murder weapon in a minute. The next person who comes in has 30 seconds. And then so you make it tighter and tighter and tighter, so that the odds of actually getting it will just slim right down.
Actually, that's an improvement that I haven't heard. So with that game, my understanding is you get the suggestion from the audience, and then you have to convey it to the people who are outside the room sequentially. And you're not allowed to use words?
I think some people do it completely silently. We find gobbledygook helps massively. So mime and gobbledygook. Sometimes you can cheat a bit and do a bit of sound effects with that as well, but it really keeps the energy up. In fact, so much so that like when we used to do, cast or script short form shows, we would, as in do the games and who's in them, not script.
Yes, I've got something.
we use it as an opener because it really warms up the audience, especially when you get to the end, and it's hilarious throughout.
Wow.
And then you get to the end, and if they get anything right, huge cheer from the audience.
Oh,
so.
Wow.
It's just one of those games you can't really mess up too bad.
The only thing you can do wrong is not
Stand
do anything
there.
at all.
Yeah.
It teaches people to make bold choices. It gets really fast paced, and if you set a time limit on it, it's over when it's over.
Yes.
Like you don't have to worry about it dragging out in the first scene.
Yeah, no, I think the time limit is an element that I didn't have when I tried it, so I think that would vastly improve it.
Yeah. But we both love the guessing games, I think, because they're quite heady and they're quite intellectual, and that's somewhere that we both play quite well.
We know we shouldn't. We know it's
Everyone's
an outlet.
don't
it's an
make
outlet.
don't make jokes, but
Well, you compare that. One of my favorite workshops we ever devised was called The Joy of Conversation, which was sort of a sneaky introduction to long form as well. Where we were sort of trying to give people tips for creating characters that can last a long form format.
Cool.
I also use it to just beat escalation out of short formers when they want to progress into long form. If someone's been doing short form for a few years, you can see them tick regularly. You can see the escalation tick in their head, and you're just going, no, because that character has to last for half an hour. And so we put them on a park bench, and we say, you're strangers, and you're going to chat, and you're going to do that for the next 15 minutes, and you're going to chat to each other about your lives. And I know, and that would be a weird rule to some improvisers, because there's one of the rules that people like to use, there was air quotes there, podcast listeners, is don't be strangers.
Yes.
And I'm like, screw that, strangers are great because there's no baggage on that relationship and you're free to ask questions.
don't have any stakes, be equal status,
Yeah.
just have a conversation, and your job when you're listening is just to be interested in the other person.
When one person gets to have a character and they come in and sit down, and the other person has to adopt the emotion they perceive, but they can have their own reasons for it.
Yeah.
So equal emotion helps create equal status, and equal status characters last longer because status gaps tend to be accentuated just naturally.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to avoid. Yeah, and then we say just chat, ask questions, and
And it kind of evolved into...
it progresses from that onto, I forgot what the form Improv Olympic use.
road trip.
Yeah, road trip.
So we graduate from the 2 people on the bench having the conversation to 4 people in a car, and just say, if at any point you feel like there's a scene that could be had from off the back of your conversation, you can tag out or whatever. Even just go, oh, I'd like to do a scene. Don't worry about how your edits look. It doesn't need to be slick. Just jump up and do the scene and then come back to it later on. And everyone was like, oh, we managed to go for 20 minutes, like a long form thing. We're like, yeah, that's how it works.
Because I've heard, they've seen that sort of road trip format, but I've not heard it used as a way of having a central conversation and then having sort of stories come off it. That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, we did that, and then we ended up we had 3 groups trying it out. One group ended up staying in the vehicle the whole time. They were just loving the conversation they were having, and
sorry, I'm just remembering some of the jokes I was overhearing.
Aging hippies who now were driving in a Lexus to go glamping at the place where they'd gone to this punk festival 10-15 years before, and then so theirs just stayed in the car. We had another group who ended up having this really sedentary road trip, but flashing back to all the ridiculous things that were happening in the rest of their lives. And then another group who were just using that as the inspiration for completely unconnected scenes, just taking random phrases out. And they all came together at the end and were like, oh no, everyone did it differently. Yeah, great. You developed 3 new forms.
Yeah.
Well done. It's that easy.
Brilliant. That sounds great. So tell me about your involvement in Strike. What is Strike and what do you do in Strike?
Strike,
Strike.
started out as a university radio show. So myself, Alex, and third co-founder Paul. Paul had a slot on the radio show, and the name comes from they said there's only a few rules you have to follow, like don't swear, don't badmouth the union, etc.
Don't get too political.
Yeah.
Don't make anything sexual. Don't slander any celebrities.
if you do any of those things, you get a strike.
Correct.
And so, of course, we were like, let's see how far we can push it. And there's just a little sound effect board with the baseball da-da-da-da-da-da, strike when we just get a little bit too close.
But the slot we had was 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on a Sunday night. So the only people listening were friends that we knew, and a surprising number of Americans that Paul knew from a chat room. And so we managed to get away with quite a lot of stuff. And then we graduated, turned it into a podcast, and then got to the point where we were all involved in the University of Sheffield's Improv Society, the Shrimps, and then decided we wanted to start doing our own thing that was, which they're the great group, very short form focused, at least at the moment. And we were like, we want to start doing more long formy things and being in charge a bit more.
So we just set up, decided to start doing improv, rehearse every Sunday, because we'd record the podcast on a Sunday afternoon, so we were just like, let's just rehearse for 2 hours beforehand and then go record. And to be honest, the podcast only stuck around, well, we joke the podcast only stuck around because it was just an excuse for us all to get together once a week. Like just an almost obligation, but we will get together as friends once a week.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, started doing
have a roast dinner alongside it.
Oh, the roasts afterwards. And yeah, we set a strike and we were like, we want to do something a bit different, but we won't launch straight into like narrative long form. So we decided to do a montage format. Right. But at the same time, like Alex and I have a particular philosophy around improv. Like we're actually very different to Tom, because Tom Young, when he teaches Armando's, talks about it should be premise based. You come on with an idea and you express that idea, whereas we much more believe in organic generation of scenes, characters, what's going on, being very emotionally honest.
There, yeah.
Yes, because if I need an idea before I come on, I ain't ever getting on that stage. Never comes.
I mean, so we were doing some Armando practice today with Tom Young, the same faces, and when he's like, what premise did you have before you come on with English roulette? And I'm like, I don't know. I had the line English roulette in my head, and I walked up and said it. And then the rest of that game happened, and I think it was quite good.
Yeah, I like to walk on stage knowing the start of the sentence and not the end of it, and then there'll usually be something there by the time I get to the end of it. And if not, we'll get there in 2 or 3 lines. Yeah. It'll be fine.
So, what format is Strike performing at the moment?
Mainly montage.
Oh, yeah.
That's because of the scene in Sheffield. We needed something that would fit in basically a 20-minute slot at an open mic night. So we were like, we'll just work on this, and it also gives us the freedom to do, because we have members of the troupe who are super gamey. Right. You've just interviewed Joe Thompson. Super gamey. When
he's so gamey, he's doing a workshop about gaming.
Yeah. It infects his life. Got people like me and Alex who we also do a two-prov that we got together to do because we are we focus and love just genuine character interaction so much. Got a couple of incredible ninjas in the troupe. Some people who prefer narrative, some people who don't. So we've got all these things, and it's just like you have the freedom to do what you want here.
Yeah.
We could do a 20-minute slot that's one story. We could do 12 ridiculous tag runs.
So that's our kind of staple thing, and that's been slowly evolving and changing over the past 2 years. We've just started with Joe's just started rehearsal with the Strike group of a narrative long form like teen high school drama which we're provisionally titling Teen High.
And it will stay as Teen High unless someone makes a conscious effort to change it. It's just one of those things. Why don't we just call it Teen High for now? It's Teen High. It just is.
So that's really fun. And then, yeah, we're in the early stages of developing a two-probby thing together.
Cool.
Which will be...
really good. Yeah. So earlier when I said like a La Ronde at lockers in a high school is because that's that were an original idea. We've dropped that idea, but we talked about the idea of starting our long form with a La Ronde, and I think La Rondes are underappreciated just as a performative piece in their own right, but also they're great for starting long form because everyone gets two relationships from the off. Yes. So it makes it really easy to build narrative.
Yes.
But yeah, so just think the stereotypes of Breakfast Club, and then just improvisers messing around in them. The number of scenes we have done that start with "dude." You can get so much emotion into the word "dude."
Cool. So you mentioned you're going to do a duo.
Yeah, we're workshopping right now. Partly it's just an excuse to get together and, as so many things, it's an excuse for us to get together and hang out, just the two of us, without like, the rest of the riffraff. Yeah, we are currently working with an opening where we get a weird thing to be addicted to. Like tomatoes or something, and then have we take it in turns to play a series of characters at an Addicts Anonymous type group. Yeah. So we each get to establish a character, then we have a little bit of the discussion between the characters, and then use that as the inspiration for further scenes, either from their life or completely out of the space.
It sort of comes in three stages. The character creation, we get to do a bit of interaction between them, which is just really nice to do and is quite honest. But from there, we just leap off into, what weird stuff have they said that inspired us.
Yeah.
So I had someone that was addicted to tomatoes, and then during the conversation, he was like, it's been really difficult because I'm on Bake Off. All of Bake Off is on Netflix now, and I've watched like 5 seasons over the past few weeks. It was just in my head all the time, so from there jump into a scene with Noel Fielding and
Sandy
Toksvig just inspecting this man's ridiculous cake.
And then we had the heir to the Heinz fortune being visited by his great-grandfather's ghost, Mr. Heinz himself, who passed on his secret recipe for a revolutionary sauce number 58 that he never got to make, which is chocolate and hazelnut combined together.
In a spread.
Yeah. Which, of course, no one had told him that Nutella exists. So a wide range that starts with very serious, dramatic emotion, and then we just get to heighten into the bizarre realms of ghost visitation.
Fantastic. You also run a jam?
The Sheffield Improv Jam, yes.
The Sheffield Improv Jam.
So I keep coming back to Joe. It's really nice that you've interviewed us back to back.
A week ago.
Oh, it's the third. the British Improv Projects.
It's a month
weekend away.
If only.
3 years ago, last week in June. So it's the third birthday of the Jam in June. It was a weird way of saying it, wasn't it? 30 years ago in 2 weeks, I was born. So he started. I don't know if he spoke to you about Chuckle Nuts.
Yes.
Yes. So Chuckle Nuts started, which way of getting lots of improvisers from across Sheffield in to do short form. Alex and I started the Jam, and it was really kind of. I mean, we were sort of half. Can we just have a jam and have some fun? And then the other half was like, actually, it'd be really good to have a space where improvisers from across the scene can get together and sort of network a bit.
Yeah.
I don't think improvisers are often the sort of people to use to talk about networking, but that was in there.
I think business has given networking a bad name. I call it having conversations with people, and suddenly that seems a lot better. Making friends.
I was down in in Bristol, and that is the right word this time, a couple of weekends ago, and talking to Caitlin and Imogen, who are some of the people who run the Bristol Improv Theatre, and they were talking about how every improv scene sort of goes through this period where they start out with everyone being in their own separate little bundles and being like, we're the only ones, and then you find out there are other people in the city, and immediately everyone hates each other. And then you have to get past that point and build bridges and be like, we should all play together. We're all fans of this very niche art form.
And it's all the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're doing long form or short form or mid form or whatever you want to call it. It's all improv. And everybody outside improv, it's like, that's all the same thing, isn't it? Yes, it is. But you get that in any subculture.
Yeah, there's the weird endless divisiveness, but there's so much joy that comes from playing with people you don't know. And so we set up the jam, and it's just been kind of slowly growing. And then
it's done super well. It has brought the scene together really nicely. We've had the past couple shows and the past couple of Christmases, Guerrilla Fun Fair, a group. Don't try and spell it. It's one of those words is spelled how you think, and the other one isn't. The Guerrilla Fun Fair are a great group up in Sheffield, and they have, I guess, produced essentially for the last couple of Christmases a Christmas show. And not in just like we'll just grab troops and they'll do a set each and short form games, like a weird, like one of these short form shows where it's short form games connected by a narrative thread,
right.
And lots of people from different troops in that. It was cool. Mall Santas, where two Santas find a magical Christmas orb.
That controls Christmas.
That controls Christmas. They accidentally get teleported to a demon's comedy club and are captured, and a bunch of elves have to free them.
That's the title, is it?
No. That's what it was about. It was called. Sorry.
No. I was thinking there's a lot of keyword phrases in there, but I'm not sure really you've optimised for your SEO there.
Hey, you're saying that to a group called Strike, who don't spell it how it is.
Who were performing with a group called Guerrilla Fun Fair, who refused to announce their shows in advance.
That's improv.
That's improv.
And the jam's also brought people into the scene, which is really, really nice. Quite a few people come along and it's like, I just Googled it and this is great. And then we get to send them off to all the different places they can learn in Sheffield.
There's also a Sheffield podcasters network that met in the same building that we were also going along to because we do the Strike podcast, and it was a great opportunity for us to go, oh well, what you do, you've got this great concept for your show which is kind of improvising, you should come along and play in this jam thing.
Oh wow.
And now we have new friends from that scene, which is nice. But we've Sheffield's in that kind of transitionary phase now where there are a couple of groups and they're all doing their own different things, and like we some of them want to work together, some of them don't want to work together. Either's fine, but we just are trying to build it up. Next on the agenda is setting up some kind of regular night where we might mix improv and stand-up, but where we would be...
I'm sure anyone from like London or Birmingham or wherever is sitting there going, oh yeah, stand-ups, they'll bring in the crowd.
Can we just explore the jam a little bit more, because I'm fascinated about how they work. Because I have grown to moderately like them.
Did you not before?
I hated them. Absolutely hated them.
Tell me about your first jam then.
Well, so...
We've weirdly switched roles. I just love status swaps.
There are various jams going on in London, and I know the people running them work really hard to make them as...
I've been to the Nurseries Jam.
Oh, right, yes, TNL.
Yes, Thursday nights.
Yes, where they have group warm-up beforehand, and they're obviously working really hard to try and make the jam a enjoyable experience. So I've got better at them, but the first few times I did them, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know any of these people. I don't know what they're going to do. Help. I mean, especially when you're doing a montage as part of a jam. The two people seeing this kind of all right. When you're doing a montage as a scene, I'm like, I can't think this quickly. My main tactic is get on, be in the first scene. Because people might bring you back Or even if they don't, well, at least I was in one scene, because the longer I leave it, I might not actually get up and do anything, and that's awful. Anyway, enough about me.
So I don't know how common the TNL format is, because they have a show slot. Someone can come along and perform.
Yes.
Then a jam, then another show, then a jam.
Yes.
And they also split their jams up, so they have like short form jam, then montage jam, then concept jam.
Yes.
I love the concept jam.
Which concept jam?
I did musical chairs.
No, what? As in, I don't know.
As it literally, you play musical chairs, and the people left standing have to do a scene. What I absolutely love about it is you probably sat there thinking, surely no one wants to sit down because they want to be in a scene. No, that musical chairs competitiveness takes over whole hog.
Oh. Oh, I thought you meant that whoever won the game then got to do a scene, but you're saying that whoever doesn't get sit down in a chair then has to do a scene.
Yeah, they do a scene. Then the scene, it's really nice because that particular scene gets to end by you just put the music back up and everyone starts dancing again. And, but the way we do it is very, back to basics. Names in a hat, pull out the name, that person comes up, they get to decide if they want to do just a scene, as no game, no gimmick, or a game, and then we just do that.
Yeah.
Repeat until about 9:30.
We've worked really hard to make it an inclusive environment for new people. And part of that has been when we've got strike members along, so we're a fairly large group, or when we still have close ties to the University Society. One of our members is the artistic director of the University Society, and so we're always kind of like with the people who we have some purview over. You know, there's an expectation of like, you're not just here to have fun, but if you know there's someone new and you're doing a scene with them, you can be supportive of them and like show them that this is a place where they're not going to be challenged and thrown under the bus.
Yeah. And improvisers are just by and large incredibly supportive people. Like the jam has a huge number of regulars. Like there's not a huge number of people in the Sheffield scene, so a lot of people come along regularly and are experienced improvisers. But if they don't recognise the person they're on stage with, they up it a gear.
Yeah.
and just like, I will do everything in my power to support you. And it being an audience of improvisers, hugely supportive. So everyone gets a laugh, everyone gets applause. It's a really nice space.
Yeah, I mean, I always find it amazing that some people find their way into the improv scene through jams. I can't imagine.
I know, it's some people who come along and are like, I've never done improv before, but I'll give it a go. And I'm just like, holy heck.
Yeah.
I always have to check, like, if I haven't seen some before, it's like, have you done before? No. I do that check just so it's like, right, well, I'm not going to give you Weekend at Bernie's or some horrible guessing game. You can do Chain Murder. Because Chain Murder's an easy laugh, or Two-Headed.
And you can explain it really easily. We're playing telephone or Chinese whispers, if you want to call it that, and charades at the same time.
Right.
That's all
with
you
a bit
need
of with the Cluedo rules mixed in.
Weekend at Bernie's, is that a reference to the film, or is that
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Oh no, it's a game. It's a form as well, is it?
It's
a short form game that
3 people start on stage, one off. You get an activity that they're doing, and they have to be super physical, and then you kill one of them off. And they go limp and they have to be puppeted around, but you repeat that 2 more times. So eventually it's just one person desperately trying to puppet 3 corpses.
Well, that does sound quite entertaining, but yeah, not necessarily something you'd want to try if this was your first venture into.
And we usually make sure that it's being run with people who we know are comfortable touching and being touched.
Yes. Yeah. Or like the other thing, so Alex's partner, I did manage to get to come along to a shrimps workshop once.
About
His
7 years ago now.
Yeah, his very first game, he got up on stage, was Story Die. And he left and never came back. And so that's like one of those things where it's like, if I want to do Story Die, I normally pick the names out of the hat during the interval and make sure it's people who are like, they enjoy this game, they're comfortable with it.
I mean, last night in the jam here, when Tom mentioned that everyone was going to be chickens, I thought, well, okay, I'm on board for that broadly, but I still hate that as a game. I find it.
No, the Chicken Die is one of the Bristol...
Big up the Bristol, that's it.
I'm just in love with all of them. The British Improv Project, at a previous weekend, one of the workshops was creating short form games, and the one game that came out that everyone absolutely loved was It's Story Die, but you play as everyone's a chicken and you kill people off by shouting KFC. And of course we have Tom Hodge here, who is a phenomenal pianist, and just plays the plinky like American banjo farm music. And it was invented by Sabrina, who is an amazing French woman, and she has this very focused energy on stage. So you come on and be like, "These are my chickens. You can kill them for any reason at any time by shouting KFC. This is chicken die."
There are no rules for when you get to shout KFC. It's just when you want.
And it's a bit more liberating than Story Die, I think, because when you don't have the pressure of like, oh, there are all these things I have to get right, all you have to do is be a chicken, and when you get killed, give the most pathetic chickeny death as possible. And I think there's not enough in a lot of short form games. It's really easy to get wrapped up in like, oh, I have to do this right, I have to do, and then you think,
am I sitting, standing, or leaning?
And one of the things that Keith Johnston talked about in I think in Improv for Storytellers is how from a very early point he was like, the theatricality of it is so important that you want to look like you're desperately invested in everything you're doing, and if you win a scene or lose a scene with his like point system, you have to really feel the joy of success or the crushing defeat. But that's another part of the performance for the audience. Like you can love being the villain and having the bad outcome happen to you just as much. And just be comfortable being absolutely stupid on stage, because there's nothing more off-putting than being sat in an audience and watching someone like, I guess I'm going to be this elephant's erection, but I just want everyone in the audience to know that I'm above this. No, I will be far more impressed if you can really embody that elephant's penis.
How do we create an inclusive place?
Well, speaking as two queer men,
there are big things and there are little things. With the University Society, we had a real problem for ages with women not ending up. So it has a tiered system. There's a performing cast that's by invitation only. And we had a huge problem with like none of the women ending up there. And we kind of looked at it and went, what's going on? Because we have female members, we had female attendees. Why aren't they getting up? And we spoke to a load of them and kind of drilled back from like, oh, is it the promotion system? Well, sort of, but maybe not. And what it came down to was, in the workshops, the artistic director would go, okay, we're going to play this game, who wants to play? And 10 guys would jump out of their seats, and a lot of women would be just in that position of like, just about to get off the chair, never mind. And by the time they got round to playing, everyone was bored of the game.
Everyone had done the gimmicks.
Everyone had done the gimmicks, so it felt like they were doing hard work. The artistic director's feedback was a bit more like, okay, well, we're going to, yeah, you get the point, we'll move on to the next game. And we just switched to, okay, you don't jump up, you put your hand up. And then the artistic director picks and goes, I'm going to pair this experienced person with this less experienced person. Within 6 months, complete reversal of gender balance in the performing group. So there are things like that, and that came from a group of mostly guys talking to the women and being like, what are we doing wrong here? Tell us.
So well, both of issues that rule in all our workshops, it's you put your hand up. Even when here, and I know we are utterly in the minority with this, because all other workshops I've been to, it's jump up. I have to like stand at the front, because everyone jumps up when I ask for volunteers, and I go, sit down, put your hands up, and I will choose. Which I think a lot of people find a bit shocking.
The other thing, so there's a sort of implicit assumption in a lot of short form games in the way that you get suggestions from people, or so for example, scenes we'd like to see, the Mock the Week game, or Whose Line Is It Anyway game.
Scenes from a Hat, yeah.
Scenes from a Hat. If you say things you can say about your X that you can't say about your girlfriend. Well, I don't have a girlfriend. Neither do the 3 women stood next to me. Do we have to pretend?
Yeah.
Do we have to jump back in the closet for that?
So
things you can say about your partner.
We degender stuff like that. I also, and I do have there's a non-binary member of our troupe, and we do have a bit of a discussion on this, because I degender suggestions when I get them from the audience. If someone says husband and wife, I say married couple. That is the suggestion that is taken, because...
Dad and son, parent and child.
Yes. Brother and sister, siblings. They all get degendered. There is an argument that this member of our troupe makes who says, actually, don't do that, because it should be like the performers can be comfortable playing those genders, and actually as a trans person it sort of means more to me to take that suggestion, like the suggestion of husband and wife, as 2 women on stage, and just, or have 2 men on stage play husband and wife, and have the man display a genuine femininity, act genuinely feminine, rather than some hyper comedic version of a woman.
We used to be in a show called Scriptless in Seattle, which was an improv romantic comedy, and we had, I think, 6 guys and 2 women. No, 5 guys and 3 women in the group at its kind of largest size. And the question came up of like, how do we feel about this? Because most rom-coms are a heterosexual couple. If an audience member shouts out like, we got as a suggestion 2 names for our protagonists. If we get Dave and then you also get Barry and a huge, what's our response to that? And what we settled on is, well, we play that to the best of our ability and just go, yeah, we're fine with that. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, we did one where we were the protagonists, because we got something in Gustav. I remember my name. And it's also nice to do that as 2 gay men, but it's just like, right, you gave that suggestion as a joke. Here's the most emotionally honest way we're going to portray this as a really subtle, who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, just being consciously deciding to represent people differently.
Yeah, because I should say that came out of, so this, I joined Scriptless a bit later, but what I had seen, the 2 shows before I joined were both gay love stories, both featuring you and Joe. Actually, you made out a lot on stage.
That's improv, baby. What can I say? He's a handsome man.
But in both of those, the sexuality of the characters was a problem for one of them. They either weren't out, or they were uncomfortable with it, or they hadn't actually realised in one of them. And so when I came along, and Rachel, who does Between Us, a 2-brother with Alex, I had a discussion with her, and I was like, right, I have one thing that I will demand, and that is, if you get a gay love story, the fact that they are gay is not a problem in any way. They don't have a homophobic uncle or anything like this. It's just you play it honestly.
So how it's, you have to commit to a lot of hard work to be inclusive. Like, it's conscious effort, and you have to be comfortable saying like, oh yeah, I definitely got this wrong in the past. It's my turn to, I can ask you a question, and then when you tell me the answer, if it's something I don't agree with, you're right, I'm going to shut up.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
To sort of take it back to the jam, where it might be more useful for people, but obviously these are really good conversations to have in any troupe. At the jam, and there was a really interesting question on the UK Improv Network Facebook group about how do you guys feel about physical contact in scenes, and what are your rules? And a lot of people, like, I think everyone sort of settled on the same answer, which was, in a troupe, discuss it.
Yes.
Because that's sort of why we have troupes, is so we can get to know these people that we improvise with.
Yes.
But Alex, you posted, like, when it's at a jam, you just set rules. Like, it is just be aware of people's personal space, be aware of people's
The default is no
gender.
touching unless you know the person and know that they're comfortable with you touching them.
Yeah.
Like, it should be the
if a
simple thing.
Yeah, or other things like if a guy comes on stage as a female character. No, they're not trans. They're playing a female character.
Yeah.
I had to. I did a beginners workshop once, and I obviously don't normally give harsh notes in like an introduction to improv workshop, but I had someone there who was on crutches. And they were performing with someone, and they got the suggestion of skiing
or something.
Yeah, skiing. That wasn't really the problematic bit, although the guy who gave the suggestion felt the need to apologise, and it was like, no, that wasn't the problem with that
Right.
scene. The problem is that the other person in the scene turned to this lady on crutches and said, so obviously after your huge accident you can't ski anymore. And like, I had to point out, this guy... She doesn't want to be the person on crutches in every scene she's in. Like, use some imagination.
Yeah.
Like, maybe
You're
the crutches
not actually going to have to ski for this thing.
maybe the crutches aren't bloody there. Like,
Yeah.
so sometimes it's just being aware of, like, maybe that person doesn't want to be the thing they are the rest of the time.
Yeah. And in the jam, we kind of open with a disclaimer now, like, it's don't jump on chairs and injure yourself, please, because we don't want to be liable for that. But also, don't touch people if you don't know them. Don't make people do demeaning things in scenes. And it's not even the case that we necessarily have a huge problem with that happening,
Yeah.
but there's also a part that you want to send a message to people who are maybe concerned about that, who've had bad experiences in the past. Because I know so many female improvisers who've gone, oh yeah, I just went to this jam, and then some bloke was like, you're my bitch now, you're my dog wife, and get on your knees. And you're like, oh, for God's sake. So we have to send a message that, sadly, for some people, that is their default experience of what a jam is like, what improv community might be like, and sending a message that says, we're not that, you can put that aside for now. We're chill. Come play.
Cool.
So basically, come to our jam. Sometime.
Yeah.
And don't touch anyone.
It helps that we're not super tied to a school who have a tutor system or anything. I had a really negative experience of coming down to a jam at a group in London who, I'll remain nameless because it's not like entirely their fault or anything. But I came down to this jam and got there and was doing a proper set. But then there was also this jam section, and we dragged some friends along as well who were in London who have an improv experience but haven't done a lot of it recently. And the jam was called, and one of my friends was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get up and just join in the jam, that'll be fun. And then 10 other people got up and all swarmed the stage, and it was just a competition to see who could impress the teachers by saying the funniest line. And I was sat there like, that's not the point.
Yeah.
And it's easy to create a structure without thinking about it that really encourages bad improv in that way, because it forces people to not work together and not think about that. And if you feel like the people who get promoted into the people who get cast in the shows and the people who get invited to the next level and whatever are the people who do the really big flashy things on stage and not the people who are supportive scene partners or take things slower and don't come up with the punchlines as fast, then you end up in that situation.
You can't have a troop of 12 pirates.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to.
That's a crew for a pirate ship. Cool. Okay, last couple of questions. So
I feel like we've used so much of your time already.
No, it's been perfect. So if you were performing in a jam, what could somebody do to delight you on stage?
Ooh. I'm thinking of some of the scenes, because obviously we sit right next to the stage with our little table and have names, and I'm thinking of some of the scenes that have just made me collapse onto Alex. I guess the things that delight me are the sort of improv that I really enjoy doing, that really slow burn character stuff. I will not do it justice, but I watched a scene once where I think it was a guy. It's not a morgue. What's the place where you do up the body before? Just in the funeral home.
That one room.
Yeah. The room in the funeral home, and there was the funeral director doing...
Mortuary,
Mortuary.
So you had the funeral director doing up the body and a very distraught relative, because truly tragedy creates the best comedy. But he just kept escalating this game of doing the worst possible things to this body, but with absolute emotional honesty. So he's just there like, would you like me to paint the face? I can do a tiger. I'll make him look like a tiger. I'm just there like, I don't know what's happening.
Fantastic.
But so despite having been introduced to improv through short form games, my delight comes from real character driven scene stuff.
Cool.
I think my delight comes from watching someone it comes from the audience usually. When I'm on stage, the thing that gives me the most delight is hearing an audience member gasp or something, which happens very, very rarely. I won't claim to be any kind of expert in creating... Oh no, fuck that. I'll claim to be an expert in creating emotional drama. I do an improvised drama. Yeah, I'm not going to apologise for my experience and my improv journey. It's hearing an audience member gasp or something.
I love it, when you get in a short form scene, it's just like, no! That's the response you want.
Yeah, and so from another performer, it's taking a silly scene and having that, throwing the thing in that makes it immediately personal and high stakes, even if it's a tiny little thing. It's what does this mean for us?
There were so many moments in the jam last night where, because lots of improvisers here are down that relationship character mold, and just so many moments where one character would turn down another's advances, and the reaction from the audience would be no.
What I'd love is to have an improviser on piano or something in the background, because I love as well being in a room with we've got, as I said, Tom Hodges. Just love the man. And whenever there's that emotional scene, just the slow introduction of soft piano music,
Beautiful.
And it elevates things really. That and a lighting rig with a good tech. Oh,
cool. Okay, so final question: could you describe each other's signature move? What do they do? Saves the day, brings the house down every time. You can always rely on it.
We're in the middle of a scene. It's maybe meandering a little bit. Someone says something that's a bit off the wall, and usually you'd let it slide. But no, actually, hang on. I'm going to pull out a whiteboard from the middle of nowhere, and we're going to seriously break down just why that's so crazy. Because we need to stop everything. You've just said the building's on fire? No. Let's pack our bags and go. Sod the bakery.
Bobby, what's Alex's signature move?
It's not pulling on a wood. That's a really difficult question, despite obviously very often watching you from a sort of coaching standpoint. I think I don't know if it's a signature move. I think Alex has a great deal of comfort in silence on stage. He is not afraid to take a moment to stop and think, and not in a panicky way. With enough assurance that the audience is assured that this silence is deliberate.
Yeah. It's the combination of silence and stillness. If you're silent but your eyes are moving around, the audience go, oh, they're panicking. If you're silent and you're looking in one place, they go, oh, wow. Oh, God, something's going on now. Wow. Oh, I'm really invested. That's all it is. That's my trick. Take it away.
You've ruined it.
I've uncovered myself. Yeah.
No, but that's brilliant, because I'm a big fan of silence as well, but I hadn't put it together with stillness, so I am going to do that in the future. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being guests on the Improv London podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
I made this.
That's improv!